Don't sit there. That's our table. Those 5 words sliced through the noisy cafeteria like a blade. Every student within earshot turned to look, curious to see who'd made the mistake of sitting where she wasn't supposed to. Maya paused mid-bite, her fork hovering in the air. It was her first day at Lincoln High, and already she'd managed to step on someone's invisible territory. She looked up, scanning the faces staring at her. 3 girls stood in front of her. Madison, tall and blonde with a glare that could cut glass. Chloe, her shorter friend who seemed to enjoy being cruel by association. And Brooke, quiet but clearly there for backup. Maya could feel their judgment before they even said another word. She had seen this kind of thing before. The territorial girls who acted like the world belonged to them. She just hadn't expected it to start this quickly. She gave a polite smile and said softly, "Didn't see your name on it." Then, deliberately, she went back to eating her sandwich. The cafeteria seemed to freeze. A few students even gasped. Madison's mouth twitched in surprise. She wasn't used to people talking back, especially not on the first day. "Excuse me?" she said, stepping closer. "You heard me?" Maya replied calmly without even lifting her eyes. "You said it's your table. I said I didn't see your name on it." The silence stretched until Madison gave a cold little laugh that made the hair on Maya's neck prickle. "You'll regret that," she said in a low voice before turning sharply and walking away with her friends. Maya's heart was pounding, but her face remained still, her body composed. Years of karate had taught her how to stay calm under pressure, to breathe when others panicked. She took another bite of her sandwich, pretending not to notice the eyes still glued to her. The truth was, this wasn't the first time she'd been the new girl. Her dad was in the military, which meant moving was just part of life. New towns, new schools, new faces, and always the same pattern. Some people were kind, others not so much. She'd learned to expect it, but this time felt different. Lincoln High had an unspoken hierarchy, and Madison clearly sat at the top. As Maya walked through the halls later that day, she could feel whispers following her like shadows. "That's her," someone muttered. The new girl who talked back to Madison. A boy laughed. "She's either brave or stupid." Maya just kept walking, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She wasn't afraid, not because she thought she was tougher than them, but because she knew who she was. Back in Atlanta, she had spent almost 10 years training at her uncle's dojo. Her black belt wasn't just a piece of cloth. It was a reminder of discipline, respect, and self-control. Her sensei used to tell her, "The true fighter wins without fighting." But Lincoln High wasn't exactly a place that understood that kind of wisdom. When she got home that afternoon, her mom, a nurse who worked long hours, noticed something in her eyes. "Rough first day?" she asked, handing Maya a glass of juice. Maya shrugged. "Nothing I can't handle," her mom smiled. "You always say that." Maya went to her room, placed her backpack down, and sat by the window. From there, she could see kids walking home in groups, laughing, shouting. She wasn't angry or sad, just thoughtful. She'd learned that when people tried to intimidate you, it was usually because they were afraid of something themselves. Still, a small part of her hoped things wouldn't escalate, but deep down she knew they would. The next morning, whispers followed her again. When she entered the classroom, Madison and her friends were already there, whispering and giggling. The moment Maya sat down, Chloe coughed the word newbie under her breath. Madison smirked but said nothing. The teacher, Mrs. Porter, began the lesson, but Maya could feel the girl's eyes on her the whole time. She didn't flinch. Instead, she focused on her notes, her handwriting neat and steady. During gym class, the tension only grew. The coach had everyone pair up for basketball drills. Maya got matched with Madison. The game was supposed to be friendly, but the first time Maya caught the ball, Madison shoved her shoulder hard. Maya stumbled slightly but caught her balance, turning her head just enough to meet Madison's smirk. "Oops," Madison said sweetly. Maya smiled faintly. "You might want to work on your coordination." The coach blew the whistle before anything else could happen. Madison glared, but Maya walked off, cool as ever. By lunchtime, the cafeteria was buzzing again. The story of the new girl who stood up to Madison twice was already spreading. Some admired her bravery. Others whispered that she was asking for trouble. Maya sat alone, not caring what they thought. She opened her lunchbox and ate quietly, eyes focused on her food, her mind calm and still, like the surface of a lake before a storm. Because Maya knew something the others didn't. When people like Madison tried to make you small, they were really testing how strong you were. And Maya wasn't just strong, she was unshakable. She didn't need to fight for attention or status. She'd been trained for something greater than that. Self-control, balance, and quiet confidence. But she also knew that people like Madison didn't stop easily. This was just the beginning, and whether she liked it or not, the storm was coming. And when it did, they would finally learn who they were really dealing with. By the second week, the bullying had started to pick up. Subtle at first, then steadily more cruel. Madison and her friends seemed to have made it their mission to make Maya's life miserable. They didn't push her in hallways or throw punches. Their attacks were quieter, calculated, and designed to humiliate. Someone would bump into her and make her drop her books. Another would whisper loud enough for her to hear. She thinks she's so perfect. Sometimes she'd open her locker and find little notes stuffed inside, scribbles that said, "Go back where you came from or you don't belong here." Maya didn't react. She had been taught never to let anger control her. Every evening after finishing her homework, she would roll out her mat and practice her katas in her small living room. Her movements were smooth and precise, every punch and kick guided by muscle memory and quiet discipline. Her mom would sometimes pause in the doorway and smile. "Rough day again?" she'd ask. Maya would nod, sweat dripping down her forehead. "It's fine," she'd say. "Just practicing patience." But patience was becoming harder to maintain. Every day, Madison's circle grew bolder. Chloe began to mimic Maya's accent whenever she spoke up in class, and Brooke made snide comments about her hair. The teachers seemed to notice, but no one wanted to get involved. Madison's father was on the school board, and most people preferred to stay quiet rather than risk trouble. Then one afternoon, as Maya was walking home, the sound of tires screeching caught her attention. Madison's car, an expensive white convertible, slowed down beside her. The tinted window rolled down, and Madison leaned out with a grin that didn't reach her eyes. "Need a ride, newbie?" she called out. Her friends giggled in the back seat. Maya kept walking. "No thanks." Madison drove slowly alongside her. "Come on, don't be shy." "We're just being nice," Maya glanced at her. "Nice? That's what you call following people home now?" Chloe laughed. "Oh, relax. We're just having fun." Maya stopped walking for a moment and looked at them, her expression unreadable. "You don't want to do this," she said evenly. Madison arched an eyebrow. "Do what? Keep trying to prove something that doesn't matter." Madison's smile vanished for a second. There was something in Maya's voice, something calm, steady, and powerful, that made her uneasy. "Whatever," she said, pressing on the gas. The car sped off, laughter fading in the distance. That night, however, Madison couldn't stop thinking about the way Maya had looked at her. Not scared, not angry, just calm, like someone who already knew how this story would end. It made her furious. She wasn't used to being ignored or dismissed. To her, reputation was everything, and Maya's quiet confidence felt like a challenge she couldn't afford to lose. By the next morning, rumors began circulating that Madison was planning something. During lunch, she sat at her table surrounded by her friends, a cruel smirk on her face. "We're doing something after school," she announced loudly, making sure Maya could hear. "A little welcome party for our new student. Let's see if she's as tough as she thinks." The cafeteria filled with murmurs. Everyone knew Madison was dangerous, not because she fought, but because she knew how to humiliate people. A few students looked toward Maya, expecting her to look nervous or scared. But she didn't even glance up. She just kept eating, taking slow, measured bites of her sandwich. Inside, though, she was exhausted. She had done everything right, kept to herself, ignored the taunts, stayed respectful. Yet somehow, that only made her a bigger target. Her sensei's words echoed in her head. "A true fighter chooses peace until peace is no longer an option." When the final bell rang, she gathered her things and walked toward the gym. The sun was low, the orange light of late afternoon spilling across the courtyard. She could sense that someone was following her. Light footsteps, a whisper of laughter. She didn't turn around. Instead, she kept walking, each step deliberate. As she passed the side field behind the gym, she noticed a few students lingering by the fence, phones already in their hands. Her stomach tightened. She knew exactly what this was. Madison wanted a show. Maya paused for a moment, closing her eyes and breathing deeply, steadying herself. She had no intention of fighting anyone, but she also wasn't going to let them break her. She'd faced real challenges before. Grueling tournaments, sparring matches that left her bruised for days. She had fought girls twice her size and learned to win with grace. But this was different. This was about dignity, not defense. As she walked toward the open field, she could already hear Madison's voice calling out from behind the bleachers. "Hey, karate girl. Thought you'd chicken out." The crowd laughed. Maya adjusted her backpack strap and looked ahead, her face calm, her eyes steady. She wasn't looking for revenge. She wasn't even looking for respect. She just wanted peace, but peace, she knew, was something bullies never understood until they were forced to. And though she didn't know it yet, that day, right there on that empty field, would be the moment Madison and her friends learned a lesson they'd never forget. Because sometimes, the quietest person in the room carries the loudest strength. And sometimes, the girl you underestimate is the one who's trained her whole life to stand tall when others try to knock her down. After school, the hallways emptied faster than usual. Students whispered in clusters, glancing at Maya as she packed her things. The rumor had spread like wildfire. Madison and her crew were waiting behind the gym. Everyone knew something was going to happen. Some kids even hung back just to see it. Maya walked slowly toward the locker rooms, her footsteps echoing. She could feel the tension in the air, like the quiet before a thunderstorm. She wasn't afraid, but her stomach churned with unease. She had promised herself she wouldn't fight unless she had no choice. Still, she tightened her ponytail and breathed deeply, steadying her heartbeat the way her sensei had taught her. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the field. The wind carried the faint buzz of phones recording. She turned the corner, and there they were. Madison, Chloe, and Brooke standing in a half-circle near the bleachers. Madison's lips curled into a smirk as soon as she saw her. "Well, well, she actually showed up," Madison said, folding her arms. "Didn't think you'd have the guts." Maya set her backpack down slowly on the grass. "You asked for me to come. Here I am. What do you want?" Chloe raised her phone, already recording. "We just want to talk," she said mockingly. "Unless you're scared." Maya's eyes flicked to the phone and back to Madison. "You don't want to do this," she said quietly. Her voice wasn't angry, just calm. Too calm. Madison took a step forward, her confidence feeding off the crowd that had begun to gather. "Do what? Talk to you? Or put you back in your place?" Maya sighed softly, shaking her head. "You think hurting people makes you strong? You're just proving how weak you are." Gasps rippled through the bystanders. Madison's face darkened and the smirk disappeared. She lunged forward suddenly, trying to slap Maya across the face. But before anyone could blink, Maya's hand shot up, catching Madison's wrist mid-swing. In one smooth motion, she turned her body and twisted Madison's arm, using her own momentum to send her stumbling to the ground. The crowd erupted. Madison scrambled to her feet, her hair falling into her face. You think you can embarrass me?" she screamed, charging again. This time Maya sidestepped, lightly placing a hand on Madison's shoulder and guiding her forward just enough to make her lose balance again. Madison fell to her knees, grass staining her jeans. Chloe's phone wobbled in her hand as she gasped. "Oh my God," she whispered. Maya didn't move toward her. She just stood still, her hands by her sides. "I told you I didn't want to fight," she said, her voice even, calm, and full of something Madison had never heard before. Control. Brooke hesitated, glancing between Madison and Maya. For a second, it looked like she might try something, but Maya's steady gaze stopped her cold. There was no threat in it, no anger, just the quiet authority of someone who knew exactly what she was capable of. Madison got up again, her pride far more bruised than her body. "You're gonna regret this," she spat, her voice shaking. "You think you're better than me?" Maya took a small step forward. "No," she said softly, "but I think you could be better than this." The words hit harder than any punch. Madison froze, her expression flickering between fury and confusion. She had expected a fight, screaming, or maybe even tears. But not this calm defiance. Not this dignity. For a long moment, no one moved. The crowd stood silent, unsure of what to do. Then Maya bent down, picked up her backpack, and looked around at the watching faces. "You all came here to see a fight," she said quietly. "But that's not what strength looks like." She turned and walked away, her head held high, the late afternoon sun gleaming on her braids. Behind her, Madison's friends lowered their phones. Chloe muttered, "We can't post this," but it was too late. Someone else already had. Within hours, the video spread through the entire school. It showed everything. Madison attacking first and Maya defending herself effortlessly with grace and control. The clip ended with Maya's calm walk away, leaving Madison humiliated but unharmed. By the next morning, the video had gone viral on every student's social feed. The comments flooded in. Madison finally got what she deserved. That girl's a legend. She didn't even break a sweat. But Maya didn't celebrate. She didn't even open her phone that morning. She went about her routine as usual. Breakfast, tying her shoes, walking to school with her headphones in. She wasn't proud of what happened. She was disappointed that it had come to that. When she entered the school building, everything went silent. Students parted as she passed, whispering and staring. Some smiled at her like she was a hero. Others looked away, afraid. She didn't react to any of it. She just walked to class, calm as ever. Later that day, in the girls' restroom, she caught sight of Madison standing alone at the sink, eyes red, wiping away what looked like tears. For a moment, Maya considered walking past her. But something in her heart told her to stop. "Madison," she said gently. The girl stiffened. "I didn't mean to embarrass you yesterday. I just wanted you to stop." Madison didn't look up. "Why didn't you hit me harder?" she muttered bitterly. "Everyone else would have," Maya smiled faintly. "Because that's not what karate is for." Madison finally met her eyes, confusion softening into something else. Guilt, maybe even respect. She didn't say anything more, but that small, silent exchange said enough. As Maya walked away, she felt lighter. She hadn't just defended herself. She had drawn a line, one that said strength wasn't about domination, but about restraint. And though she didn't know it yet, that single act of mercy would be what people remembered most, because anyone can throw a punch. But it takes real power to walk away when you could have won. By the next morning, Lincoln High felt like a completely different place. The air buzzed with energy and whispers. Everywhere Maya went, she could feel eyes following her. When she walked into the cafeteria, conversations dropped mid-sentence. Some students smiled and nodded at her. Others just stared. Everyone had seen the video. The girl who had been mocked and bullied was now the talk of the entire school. And for once, it wasn't in a cruel way. The clip showed everything clearly. Madison throwing the first hit, Maya's calm reaction, her precise movements, her complete control. There was no aggression, no anger, no violence, just composure. The final shot of Maya walking away had turned into a meme overnight. Some students called her the Karate Queen. Others just whispered her name in awe. But Maya didn't feel like a queen. She felt tired. As she sat in her first class, she kept her eyes on her notebook, ignoring the buzz of phones and the occasional glances from classmates. This wasn't the kind of attention she wanted. She had never trained to humiliate anyone. Her sensei's words echoed in her mind again and again. The goal is not to win against others, but to win against yourself. When the bell rang, she stayed back, packing her things slowly. That's when her teacher, Mr. Cole, approached her. "I saw the video," he said quietly. "I know you didn't start it," Maya nodded. "Thank you," he smiled kindly. "You handled it better than most adults would have. But be careful. Sometimes being right doesn't protect you from consequences." She understood what he meant. Madison's father was influential. The school might still find a way to twist things. But deep down, Maya wasn't afraid. She had nothing to hide. At lunch, the atmosphere shifted. Madison wasn't at her usual table. Chloe and Brooke sat without her, whispering nervously. The power dynamic that once ruled the cafeteria had cracked wide open. People who used to fear Madison now laughed about her behind her back. The same students who used to look past Maya were suddenly offering her seats, asking questions about karate, and treating her like some kind of celebrity. But Maya didn't enjoy it. Fame built on humiliation wasn't worth anything to her. She simply smiled politely, thanked them, and moved on. Later that afternoon, she stopped by the locker room to change for gym class. The air smelled faintly of detergent and sweat, the usual. But then she heard it, soft, muffled sobs coming from the corner near the lockers. She followed the sound quietly and found Madison sitting alone on the bench, face buried in her hands. Her phone lay beside her, the screen cracked. For a moment, Maya just stood there, unsure of what to say. The girl who had spent weeks tormenting her now looked small and lost. Madison didn't notice her until Maya spoke. "You okay?" Madison jumped, wiping at her eyes quickly. "What do you want?" she snapped, her voice trembling. "Nothing," Maya said softly. "Just checking on you," Madison scoffed. "Oh, please. You got what you wanted. Everyone thinks you're some kind of hero now." Maya shook her head. "I didn't want any of this. I just wanted you to stop." For a moment, Madison didn't respond. Then she whispered, "Why didn't you hit me harder? Why didn't you make me pay for what I did?" Maya smiled faintly. "Because that's not what strength is for." Madison looked up, her red eyes full of confusion. "You make it sound so easy, like you're better than everyone." "I'm not better," Maya said gently. "I've just been taught to fight the right battles." "You've been fighting the wrong ones." Silence filled the room. Madison blinked back tears. "Everyone hates me now," she muttered. "Even my friends." Maya hesitated, then sat down beside her. "That's the thing about fake friends. They disappear when things get hard. Maybe this is your chance to start over." Madison stared at her, processing the words. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not with pity, not with judgment, but with understanding. "I don't know how to start over," she admitted. Maya smiled softly. "You start by doing one good thing, even if it's small." The two girls sat there in silence for a long time. The hostility that once separated them seemed to dissolve, replaced by something that almost felt like respect. Maya stood up, slung her bag over her shoulder, and said quietly, "Take care of yourself, Madison." As she walked out, Madison whispered, almost too softly to hear, "I'm sorry." Maya didn't turn around, but she heard it. And that was enough. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Maya stopped by the local park. Children were practicing karate under her uncle's old friend, Master Lee. She watched them from a distance, smiling at their clumsy but determined movements. For the first time since moving, she felt a deep sense of peace. The video might have made her famous, but it wasn't what defined her. What mattered was that she had stood her ground without losing her values. She had defended herself without destroying someone else. The next day, to everyone's surprise, Madison showed up to school, not angry or defiant, but quiet. She avoided the gossip and ignored the stares. Later, Maya noticed her picking up a younger student's dropped books in the hallway. It was small, but it was something. Change had started, not just for Madison, but for everyone. The bullies had lost their power, and kindness had started to take root in its place. And while Maya didn't say it out loud, she knew that day behind the gym wasn't just a fight. It was a turning point, because sometimes one act of calm courage can silence years of cruelty. And sometimes the person the world underestimates the most becomes the one who teaches everyone else what real strength looks like. Months passed, and Lincoln High had slowly changed. The whispers that once followed Maya had faded, replaced by friendly greetings and quiet respect. The cafeteria, once ruled by gossip and fear, now felt lighter. People actually laughed for the right reasons. The old cliques had broken apart, and something new had begun to grow. A culture where students looked out for each other instead of tearing one another down. Maya had never planned to become anyone's hero, but that's exactly what she'd become to many of the younger students. They watched the way she carried herself, with calm confidence, never needing to prove anything. It wasn't about fame or power, it was about presence. Even teachers noticed the difference she brought to the classroom. One afternoon, the school principal called Maya into her office. She was nervous at first, half expecting a lecture about the fight from weeks ago. But to her surprise, the principal smiled warmly. "Maya, I wanted to thank you," she said. "What happened that day could have turned into something ugly, but you handled it with maturity and grace. You reminded everyone what real discipline looks like." Maya nodded, humbled. "I just didn't want to hurt anyone." "That's exactly why you made an impact," the principal said. A few of your classmates approached me with an idea. They want you to start a self-defense club here. What do you think?" For a moment, Maya was speechless. She'd always thought of karate as something personal, a private part of her life. But the thought of sharing it, of teaching others to defend themselves and build confidence, sparked something inside her. "I'd love to," she said, finally smiling. The first class met a week later in the school gym. Only a handful of students showed up at first, but by the end of the month, the group had doubled. Maya wasn't a professional instructor, but she didn't need to be. She taught from the heart. She showed them how to balance their stance, how to breathe, how to stay centered even when faced with chaos. She reminded them that fighting wasn't about hurting others. It was about protecting yourself physically and emotionally. Even Madison showed up one day. She lingered near the door for a long moment, unsure if she'd be welcome. The room fell silent when Maya noticed her. Everyone waited to see what would happen. Maya simply smiled and said, "Grab a mat." Madison's shoulders relaxed. She stepped inside. That day, as Maya demonstrated a basic block and counter move, Madison followed her lead, awkward at first, then slowly more confident. When the session ended, she stayed behind, helping roll up the mats. "You really don't hate me, do you?" Madison asked quietly. Maya shook her head. "Hating you wouldn't make me any stronger." Madison gave a faint smile. "You're something else, you know that?" "I just try to remember who I want to be," Maya replied. "That's the real fight, choosing who you are when life tries to make you someone else." Over time, their relationship evolved from enemies to something almost like friendship. Madison stopped using her influence to scare people, and instead started volunteering with the self-defense group. It wasn't about making up for what she did. It was about growing beyond it. The two girls rarely talked about the past, but their mutual respect spoke louder than any apology ever could. Months later, during a small school assembly, Maya was called to the stage. The principal handed her a certificate of appreciation, recognizing her leadership and courage. As the crowd clapped, she scanned the audience and saw Madison smiling proudly from the front row. It wasn't just applause she was hearing, it was change. That night, Maya walked home beneath the orange glow of streetlights. The air was cool, calm, quiet. She thought about her old dojo back in Atlanta, about her sensei's lessons, about the path that had led her here. Her father was still overseas, but she wished he could see how she'd grown. When she reached her house, her mom was waiting by the door, smiling. "So," she asked, "how does it feel to be Lincoln High's role model?" Maya laughed. "I don't know about that. I'm just doing what I can." Her mom hugged her. "That's all anyone can do." Later, as Maya sat by her window, she looked out at the quiet neighborhood. Somewhere out there, other kids were facing bullies, struggling to find their voice. She hoped her story would remind them that strength doesn't come from fists or fame. It comes from peace, patience, and knowing your worth. She thought about everything that had happened, the fear, the confrontation, the video, and the forgiveness that followed. It wasn't an easy journey, but it had been worth it. If someone asked her what she had learned, she would say this: real power isn't about showing the world how strong you are. It's about staying calm when the world tries to shake you. She picked up her black belt from her desk, the one she'd earned years ago after a grueling test that left her body aching, but her spirit unbroken. She held it in her hands and whispered to herself, strength with kindness, power with peace. It had taken her months to realize it. But that was her true victory. Not the fight, not the fame, but the fact that she had stayed true to herself in a world that tried to make her lose her balance. And as the night deepened and the stars glimmered above, Maya smiled, knowing that sometimes the greatest battles aren't fought in the open, they're fought within. And the quietest victories are the ones that change everything.